Welcome back, children. So coming to today's class, it will be a chapter review of laws of motion. So in this chapter review of laws of motion, okay, we will divide the chapter into two parts. So in the first part, I will be telling you about the Newton's laws, its significance, okay, what type of numericals are expected from the first part of the lesson, like questions related to momentum, impulse, conservation of momentum, equilibrium of a rigid body and connecting bodies. Whereas the second part of the chapter, it will be completely dealing with the friction part. Okay, frictional force, friction on a horizontal surface, then inclined plane, how to understand motion along with friction and so on. Okay, now let us start with the first half of the lesson, that is Newton's laws, its significance and a few numericals related to it. So coming to the Newton's first law. Okay, what does the Newton's first law tell you? A body remains in the state of rest or in the state of uniform motion until and unless it is compelled by an external force. So if you don't apply any external force, a body at rest will remain in the state of rest. If a body is in motion, it continues to move in the same state. So this is the first law of Newton. So what is the significance of this law? Okay, we know the significance of this law is it tells you about inertia. Okay, what is inertia? It is the resistance which a body is going to offer, okay, to change its state of motion. If it is at rest, it wants to remain in the state of rest. If it is in motion, it wants to remain in the state of motion until and unless some external force is applied on it. So inertia is the resistance what a body is going to offer to change its state of motion. And we know we have classified this into three types: inertia of rest, inertia of motion and inertia of direction. Okay, look at the example of inertia of rest. Okay, one example is, take a beaker containing water. Okay, we put a cardboard on it and a coin. When you suddenly pull the postcard or the cardboard, then this coin is going to fall into the beaker, because initially the coin was at rest and it wants to remain in the state of rest. It doesn't want to change its position. So it falls down into the beaker. One more example. A person in a stationary bus. Okay, imagine a person standing in a bus. The bus is at rest. So the person is also in the state of rest. If the driver suddenly starts the bus, what would happen? Person is resisting to move. His legs are pulled forward along with the bus. So he will fall in the backward direction. This is an example for inertia of rest. Then inertia of motion. A body in motion tries to remain in the state of motion. It doesn't want to change the state of motion. Say a person is standing in a moving bus. The bus is moving. If the driver suddenly stops, tell me what would happen to the person? He wants to move and his legs have come to rest. So this person is going to fall forward. So this is an example for inertia of motion. Inertia of direction. Okay, whenever the bus takes a turn, passengers are thrown in the outward direction. That is because of inertia of direction. So the first law tells you about inertia, and these are the various types of inertia. And what is the measure of inertia? Mass is the measure of inertia. More mass, more is the inertia for the body. Lesser mass, less is the inertia. So this is all about the significance of first law. One more important point of first law. Look at these two terms, rest and uniform motion. In mechanics, these two are equivalent to each other. They are not equal, I am saying they are equivalent. In the sense, if you observe a system or if you take a system, one is at rest. Another system, it is moving with a constant velocity. So a lift is moving up with a constant velocity. In this system, if you project a body upward with a speed u, the time of flight will be 2u by g. Now repeat the same experiment in this system, which is moving up with constant speed. a body is projected up with a speed u, then you will get the same time of flight. That is 2u by g. So whatever experiment you have done in a system at rest, the result of an experiment will remain the same even if it is done in a system which is in more constant motion, uniform motion. That also is explained by Newton's first law. Rest and uniform motion. In both the cases, acceleration is 0. Because velocity is 0, acceleration is 0. And here velocity is constant, still acceleration is 0. So this is regarding the first law of Newton. Now come to second law. Okay, what does the second law of Newton tell you? Okay, we know the second law of Newton tells you that the force acting on a body, okay, whenever you apply an external force on a body, force is equal to the rate of change of momentum. F is equal to dP divided by dt. So what is the significance of this law? It has introduced a mathematical term to calculate the force. So force is dP divided by dt. So come to its significance. It introduces the term momentum. Momentum is mass into velocity. Okay, the product of mass into velocity is defined as momentum. This is one significance. If you bring this dt to the left hand side, product of F into dt, force, large force acting for a small interval of time. This is called as what? Impulse. So from Newton's second law, can I write F into dt as dp? F into dt is equal to dp. So impulse is always equal to change in momentum. What do you call this statement as? Impulse is equal to change in momentum. This is called as impulse momentum theorem. I repeat, second law says applied external force is always equal to or proportional to rate of change of momentum. The direction of this force is always in the direction of change in momentum. It introduces the term momentum, product of mass into velocity. Product of force into time is called as impulse, and this can be written as change in momentum, and we call this statement as impulse momentum theory. Okay, apart from this, you can get a formula for force. Okay, we can prove that force is mass into acceleration if mass of a particle is constant. Okay, so look at a few more points regarding second law. Okay, if you write momentum as mass into velocity, we know F is equal to d by dt of m into v. If mass is constant, if the mass of the particle is not varying with time, what will force be equal to? M into dv by dt, that is acceleration. But provided when m is constant. Suppose the body is moving with constant speed and mass is variable. In such a case, how will you differentiate it? V into dm by dt. Okay, if mass is changing and velocity is constant, then F will be m v into dm divided by dt. If both are variables, then first function differential of second plus second function into differential of first. So this is the case when v is constant, and this should be a formula when none of them is constant. So this is regarding the force. And remember, force is a vector quantity. Okay, F is m into a. Force along x-axis can produce an acceleration only in x direction. If your force is along y-axis, it can accelerate the particle only in that particular direction. So F is equal to m into a can be proved by making use of Newton's second law. But come to this second law. If there is no external force acting on a body, if external force is 0, go back to this relation. dP by dt will become 0. Implies momentum is constant. What do you call this statement as? It is called the law of conservation of linear momentum. if there is no external force acting on a body, then its momentum remains constant. Total initial momentum should be equal to total final momentum. But this is possible when there is no external force acting on a body. And we call this statement as conservation of linear momentum. Now related to this, okay, let us see how numericals may be given in the NEET exam based on momentum, impulse, conservation of momentum and so on. So let us come to questions related to change in momentum. Okay, let's start with a simple question. Okay, you may get a question very simple like this. This is a vertical wall. A ball of mass L is projected with a speed u. Okay, if it goes and hits the wall horizontally and bounces back with the same speed, what is the change in momentum? First question. If the time of impact is t seconds, calculate the force exerted by the ball on the wall. I repeat the question. A ball is projected horizontally. It is hitting the wall and bouncing back with the same speed. Then what is the change in momentum? Express momentum in vector form. What is the initial momentum? If I take this as positive direction, mu I cap. After hitting the wall, final momentum is minus mu I cap. So what is the change in momentum? P final minus P initial. Find out the change, this minus this. Is it minus 2 mu I cap? So what is the direction of this change in momentum? Minus I cap. Magnitude is 2 mu, but direction is minus I. Then how do we calculate the force? Force is change in momentum divided by the time of impact. We know the change in momentum, it's minus 2 mu I cap, and the time of action of the force is t. So the force acting on it will be minus 2 mu by t into I cap. Magnitude is 2 mu by t, direction is minus I. So this is a simple question where the ball is hitting the wall and bouncing back with the same speed. Now the second case. If it is hitting the wall at an angle and then changing its direction. Okay, so assume that this is a ball whose mass is m moving with a speed u. It comes and hits the wall and is deflected without any change in its magnitude of momentum. Whatever is the magnitude of initial momentum, same as the magnitude of final momentum. Okay, this angle is given as equal to theta. Okay, by what angle is it deflected? Through an angle theta. Then again find out what is the change in momentum. So find out what is the change in momentum. This is your initial momentum direction, mu. If I take this whole angle as theta, I have taken a midpoint of it. This is theta by 2, theta by 2. Write the initial momentum in vector form. P initial is equal to. Okay, this is your direction of initial momentum. Resolve them into components. This is theta by 2, mu cos theta by 2 I cap plus mu sin theta by 2 j cap. Okay, I wrote the momentum by resolving it into components. After hitting the wall, it's going along this direction. Is it in the second quadrant? X is negative, y is positive. Again, angle is theta by 2, magnitude is same. Write the final momentum. Mu cos theta by 2 minus I cap plus mu sin theta by 2 j cap. This is final and initial momentums. We want the change in momentum. Subtract the two relations. Okay, P final minus P initial. This will give you the change in momentum. Okay, find out what is the change. Minus of minus, minus 2 mu cos theta by 2 I cap. Anyway, these two terms will get cancelled. So observe the change in momentum. Magnitude is 2 mu cos theta by 2. Direction is minus I cap. I took this as the I cap direction. Direction is up to you. Okay. But magnitude is 2 mu cos theta by 2. So this is the case if there is no change in speed but only direction is being changed. You can remember this formula as 2 mu cos theta by 2. But be careful, this whole angle is theta, so here you will get it as theta divided by 2. And in some cases, they may not give you the same speed. Okay, here the speed is u. After hitting the wall, they may give you a different speed v. Then you write what is the initial and final momentum vectors and then subtract the relation. Okay, so this formula is not all the time applicable, only when the ball is deflected through an angle theta. Then change in momentum is 2 mu cos theta by 2. Then if the time of impact is given, when you divide with this time, you will get the force. So one more question regarding the forces, okay, similar to this. They may give you a jet of water. Okay, you have a hose pipe. Okay, this is a hose pipe whose area of cross section is small a. Okay, it is carrying the liquid of density rho. Water is coming out with a velocity v. It is hitting this vertical wall and falling down. I repeat the question. From a hose pipe whose area of cross section is a, liquid of density rho is emerging out with a speed v. It is hitting the vertical wall. After hitting the wall, it is coming to rest. Okay, it falls down. It is not bouncing back to the same speed. Both the cases we will study. So if the time of impact is t, okay, whatever, what is the force exerted by this liquid on the wall? How to calculate the force? We know force is rate of change of momentum, dp by dt. Okay, I will write it as d by dt of. Is momentum mass into velocity? We know the speed with which this jet of water is coming out. Take a small volume whose length is L. Area of cross section of this is small a. I will write momentum as mass into velocity, that is d by dt of. Can I write mass as density into volume of this small portion? Okay, how to write the volume? Area of cross section into displacement delta L or dl into v. Anyway, v is constant, rho constant, area of cross section of the pipe is also constant. Remove all of them. Rho av into d by dt of delta L. Rate of change of displacement again gives you velocity. dl by dt will give you velocity. So what is the force it is going to exert on the wall? It is rho into a into v square, provided it hits the wall and then it is going to stop. But if it is hitting the wall and the water is bouncing back with the same speed, then change in momentum will be 2 mu. Okay, just now I showed you a ball is projected and it is coming back. We have got the change in momentum as not mu, it is 2 mu. So here, because final speed is 0, I have written final minus initial, or it is magnitude, I have written it as m into u. If direction has to be written, minus. Okay, it's acting opposite to the wall. So if water comes and hits and bounces back with the same speed, then your force will be 2 rho a into v square. Okay, now the magnitude will become 2 mu. So the same method, it's 2 rho a into v square. And if they give you at an angle, say the hose pipe is sending water, it is hitting the wall and coming out at an angle theta. Make use of this relation. What will be the force acting now equal to? If you know this whole angle is theta, change in momentum or force acting will become 2 rho a v square into cos theta by 2. Okay, the whole angle of deflection is theta. So here you will get theta by 2. Because change in momentum you will get 2 mu cos theta divided by 2. So this will be the force if water hits the wall and gets deflected through an angle theta. So this is one, okay, these are one set of questions, okay, related to calculation of change in momentum. Okay, now coming to questions related to impulse. Okay, just now we have discussed impulse is J equal to a large force acting for a small interval of time. Okay, force is variable, then I have to write integral of f into a dt. Okay, impulse is represented as J, which is integral f dt, which is nothing but equal to change in momentum. Okay, if P is the momentum, change in momentum itself gives you the impulse. And if you have a variable force, the area enclosed by force versus time graph Okay, so this whole area gives me impulse or change in momentum. Okay, graph is given between force and time, then the area enclosed is a measure of impulse or it is a measure of change in momentum. So related to this also you may get some questions. Okay, look at one question here. Okay, so there is some graph given between force and time. Calculate the impulse. Okay, let this be 10 Newton. Everything I am giving in SI system. 0, 10 and 5. Time is measured in seconds. Calculate the impulse between 0 to 5 seconds. Okay, now tell me how will you find out the impulse? Just now I told you impulse is equal to area enclosed. Find out the area enclosed. Okay, this value is minus 5 Newton. So it's a triangle area which is positive. This rectangular area is negative. Find out the total impulse J equal to area of this triangle, half into base into height, minus area of this rectangle, 5 into 5. (50 minus 25), answer will be 25 Newton second. So if graph is given, you can directly find out. Sometimes they give you an equation for force. Okay, say force varies according to the relation 2t square plus 3t. Then determine the impulse from 0 to 2 seconds. If force is a function of time, then how do we calculate the impulse? J is equal to integral of 2t square plus 3t into dt. From where to where? 0 to 2 seconds. Find out what should be the impulse. Integrated 2t cube by 3 plus 3 into integral of t is t square by 2. So impulse would be given by 2t cube by 3 plus 3t square by 2. What are the limits? 0 to 2. Substitute the limits and simplify. You can find out what is the. Say sometimes they may also give you position time graph and ask you to calculate the impulse at a certain interval of time. Okay, say position versus time graph. Okay, for a particle is given as shown below. This is your NCERT question. Some value. Say this is 10 meter. Determine the impulse at t equal to 2 seconds. So if they are asking you to find out the impulse at t equal to 2 seconds, okay, mass will of course be given. Okay, let's take the mass is equal to 1 kg. So be very careful here. Just before 2 seconds, determine what is the velocity of the particle. After 2 seconds, determine what is the speed. See, before 2 seconds, slope is the measure of speed. What is the speed of the particle? U equal to, okay, 10 by 2. Is it moving with 5 meter per second? And after 2 seconds, position is constant. So speed has become 0. So initial speed is 5 meter per second. Final speed has become 0. And we know impulse is nothing but equal to change in momentum. So find out what is the impulse. M into V minus U. Mass is given 1 kg. 0 minus 5. Your answer will be negative. Minus 5 Newton second. So be careful with sign values, or whether positive or negative sign is your answer. That is decided by what is the nature of behavior or what is the speed of the particle just after 2 seconds. Because they are asking you to find at t equal to 2 seconds. Determine what was the speed before and after. Before gives you initial, after gives you the final velocity. So this also is a question which is related to impulse by giving you position versus time graph. Now coming to questions related to equilibrium of a body, we are talking about translational equilibrium here. Okay, when you say a body is in translational equilibrium, if the net force acting on the particle or a body becomes equal to a 0. So all the forces along x-axis should become 0. All the forces acting along y direction also has to become a 0. Okay, if it's a two-dimensional case. So when do you say a body is in equilibrium? The net force along x and y direction should get cancelled. Now, if a body is in equilibrium under the action of two forces, we can clearly say that the two forces must be equal and opposite. Say if you have applied a force of 10 Newton, if this particle is in equilibrium, F1, what should be the magnitude of the second force also? 10 Newton. They should be equal and opposite if only two forces are acting on a body. But if more than two forces act, how do you explain this equilibrium? Okay, if you have three forces keeping a particle at rest, okay, then we'll be making use of Lami's theorem. Okay, what is your statement or how do you apply Lami's theorem? If this body is at rest under the action of three forces, the force which is, the angle which is opposite to F1, I'll call it as theta 1, opposite to F2, theta 2, opposite to F3, I'll call it theta 3. So when do you say this particle is in equilibrium? If F1 by, according to Lami's theorem, sine theta 1 becomes equal to F2 by sine theta 2 should be equal to F3 by sine theta 3. So either you can apply Lami's theorem or else you can resolve the forces into components. All x components should be balanced and y component should be balanced. Any of these two methods will give you the net force as 0 and then we say the body is in equilibrium. So related to equilibrium also, let us discuss two example questions. Okay, so making use of Lami's theorem or by resolving the forces. Okay, there are two questions given. Determine the value of T1 and T2. So look at the first question. So here the angles are given 30 and 30. Okay, I will do it by resolving the forces or by using Lami's theorem. Okay, drop one horizontal line. If this is 60, this will be 60, 30 degree and this will be 30. So what is this total angle? 60 plus 90, 150. What will this total angle be? 90 plus 30, 120. So obviously this will be 90 degrees. If you know the angles, you can use Lami's theorem. T1 by sine 150 should be T2 by sine 120 should be, okay, downward force is 1 into G by sine 90. So find out T1. What is T1 equal to? 1 into G. G if you take it as 10. Sine 90 is 1 into sine 150. Sine 150 is sine of 90 plus 60. That's nothing but cos 60. Okay, we know value of cos 60 is 1 by 2. What should be the value of T1? 5 Newton. If you know T1, equate these two to get the value of T2. G I am taking it as 10, sine 120. Sine of 90 plus 30. Okay, what is the value of sine of 90 plus 30? Cos 30. Cos 30 root 3 by 2. So this is 10 root 3 by 2 or 5 root 3 Newton. Okay, similarly, you can also solve for B bit either by Lami's theorem or by resolving the forces. So here I want the value of T1 and T2. This time I will resolve the forces and then calculate. What is the force pulling it down? This is 60 Newton. This side you have T1. Resolve T2 into components. 30 and 30. T2 cos 30. This is T2 sine 30. Okay, since the system is in equilibrium, upward force should be downward. T2 sine 30 should be 60 Newton. So what is T2? 60 into 2, 120 Newton. Similarly, equate the horizontal forces also. T1 should be equal to T2 cos 30 or T1 is equal to, T2 is already given, it's 120, sine 30 is root 3 by 2, that is 60 root 3 Newton. So based on Lami's theorem or by resolving the forces, these are the questions related to equilibrium of a body. So I told you about momentum conservation and then impulse questions and then coming to the questions related to equilibrium of a body. Okay, now let us go to the next topic. Okay, now questions related to connecting bodies. Okay, so let us see how to calculate the tension in the string for horizontal and vertical arrangement of blocks and strings. Okay, look at the arrangement. We'll start with simple questions first. Say a block is hanging from a rigid support Okay, what should be the tension in the string? Because this system is also in equilibrium. Force pulling it down is 1 into G. The force acting upward is tension in the string. So the system is in equilibrium, so T is equal to 1 into G. Second case. Now I will consider two blocks. Okay, in all the cases we have taken the strings to be ideal. Massless or mass is negligible when compared to the weight that we have attached. This is a 2 kg. Here you have 3 kg. Let the tension here be T1 and tension in this string be T2. How do we find T1 and T2? Again, the system is in equilibrium. Okay, no acceleration is present. Start with the lowest block. Force pulling it down is 3G. And we know tension is always a pulling force. Okay, if you cut here and draw the free body diagram, on 3 kg block, T2 will be acting upward. If you take the free body diagram for 2 kg block, its own weight, it is connected to a string in the downward direction. It is pulling it down by a tension T2. There is one more string on the top. This is pulling it by a tension T1. The block is at rest, so no acceleration. Okay, if I take the free body diagram for this 3 kg block, even this has no acceleration. Upward force should be equal to downward. So what is T2 equal to? 3G. Come to this block. T1 should be equal to 2G plus T2. Since T2 is 3G, what is T1 equal to? 3 plus 2, 5G. Okay, so this is the case how to find tension in the string in vertical arrangement of blocks when there is no acceleration in it. What will be your answer if this is moving up with an acceleration 1 meter per second square, and if this system is moving up with an acceleration 2 meter per second square? How will you modify your answers for T1 and T2? Previously the strings were stationary. Now if this system is going up with an acceleration, from the free body diagram, remember the formula? M into A. Net force should be applied minus opposing. Since the system is moving up, for the first case, 1 into A should be upward force is T. Opposing force is 1 into G. Acceleration is 1. Is T minus G. What will T become equal to? 10 plus 1, 11 Newton. Okay, if I take G as 10, you will get G plus 1 or it is equal to 11 Newton. Tell me the answer for this. If this whole system is accelerating upward, then what will be the T1 and T2 values? If you again make the free body diagram for 3 kg and 2 kg. For 3 kg, its own weight is acting downward. T2 is pulling it up. This is accelerating up with an acceleration 2 meter per second square. Write the equation 3 into A. Since the system is moving up, T2 is applied force, 3G is the opposing force. 3 into A should be T2 minus 3G. If I take G as 10 and A as 2, 3 2s, 6 plus 30. What is tension in the lower string? It is 36 Newton. What will be the tension T1 then? Make the free body diagram for 2 kg. This is 2 kg moving up with an acceleration of 2 meter per second square. Its own weight acting downward. T2 pulling it down. T1 is pulling it up. M into A, 2 into 2 should be applied minus opposing. What is the applied force? T1 minus. What are the two opposing forces? 2G minus T2. Simplify. 4 is equal to T1 minus 20 minus 36, or T1 is equal to 56 plus 4. How much is the value? 16 Newton. Okay, so this is a simple question where vertical blocks are given and they may ask you to calculate the tension in various parts of the string. Either the system may be at rest or it may be accelerating up or down. Remember this general relation, net force is applied minus opposing. Okay, now look at this question. If all the blocks are placed on horizontal table on a frictionless surface, then how do we calculate T1 and T2 for this type of arrangement? Okay, so look at the blocks. It's 1, 2 plus 3. Total 6 kg is present on the horizontal surface, but friction is negligible. It is 0. Friction is considered to be equal to 0. How much force did we apply here? 18 Newton. So how to get the value of T1 and T2? To get the value of T1 and T2, either you can make the free body diagram and solve, or you can also do it by a shortcut method. See, first find out what is the net acceleration. How to get the net acceleration? Net force by sum of the masses. How much force did we apply? 80. By sum of the masses, 3 plus 2 plus 1. Is it 3 meter per second square? Okay, once you get the acceleration, suppose you want to find the tension in this part of the string. Either you can write the free body diagram and find out, or else hold the string here, pull it. Which two blocks are moving with you? 2 and 1 kg. Then T1 will be equal to 2 plus 1 into 8. Okay, tension here is the remaining masses into acceleration. T2 is equal to, hold the string here and pull it. Only 1 kg will be moving with you. So tension will be 1 into 8. A we already know. 3 into 3, this is 9 Newton. This is 1 into 3, 3 Newton. Okay, this is a direct method of writing. If you want to make the free body diagram and write, look at it. Observe this block, 3 kg first. It is moving with an acceleration 3 meter per second square. How much force did we apply here? 18 Newton. Since it's connected to the string, this string will pull this block with a tension T1. So make the equation of force 3 into A. Applied minus opposing. 3 into 3. 18 minus T1. So what is T1 equal to? 18 minus 9. Got the answer 9 Newton? Okay, the same answer we are going to get. Come to this block now, or 2 kg block. For 2 kg block, this side tension is T1 and here tension is T2. Okay, I am making the free body diagram for it. It is moving with an acceleration 3 meter per second square. This side T1 and here I will call T2. Write the equation of motion 2 into A. Since it's moving this side, this is applied and this is opposing. T1 minus T2 or 2 into 3. T1 we have to calculate. Sorry, T1 is 9 minus T2. So what should T2 be? 9 minus 6, 3 Newton. Got the same answer as the previous. So this is how you can find out the tension, provided the strings are ideal and the surfaces are frictionless. In the same question, there may be a force like this. Now tell me what will be the value of T1 and T2. So here 18 Newton and this side I have given 6 Newton. First find out what is the net acceleration. What should be the net acceleration? Net force by sum of the masses. Net force would be 18 minus 6. By sum of the masses is 6. 12 by 6. Is the acceleration 2 meter per second square? Now once you know the acceleration, you can make a free body diagram for it. This is a 3 kg block moving with an acceleration 2 meter per second square. This side you have applied a force of 18 Newton. Opposing force I call it as T1. So 3 into 8 should be 18 minus T1. 6 is equal to 18 minus T1. So what is T1 equal to? 12 Newton. Come to this block. 2 into 8 should be T1 minus T2. 2 into 2. T1 is 12 minus T2. So what is T2? 12 minus 4, 8 Newton. So if you have more than one force, first find out the acceleration, make a free body diagram, for each block, and you can find out what is the tension in the string. But all these are very simple applications related to connecting the bodies. Okay, now sometimes the mass of the string may not be negligible. Okay, they may give you like this. A block of 2 kg is connected by a heavy rope whose mass is say 2 kg, length is 2 meter. Okay, so here we are applying a force of say 8 Newton. Okay, they may ask you, determine the tension at a distance of say 20 centimeter from this end. Any distance, some distance will be given. Okay, from the free end at a distance of 20 centimeter, determine what is the tension. See, to calculate the tension here, let us see how to identify it. So first I'll find out what is the total acceleration of the system. It's on a smooth horizontal surface. How to get the acceleration? Applied force by sum of the masses. It's a uniformly distributed mass. Okay, mass is uniformly distributed throughout the length of the string. What is the total mass? 2 plus 2, 4. Acceleration would be 2 meter per second square. Since I want tension here, just now I told you, hold the string and pull it. Tension depends on the remaining mass which is attached. So what is the tension in this string? If I take the mass till here as m dash, it is 2 plus m dash into a. Either this, or you can use the free body diagram and then find out the answer. But I have used a shortcut method. If I want the tension here, I need the total remaining mass on the left side. How much is the mass remaining on the left side? This is 2 kg plus this mass. So first let us calculate what is m dash. Total mass by total length should be m dash by this length. Say it is a 2 meter rope. This is 20 centimeter. What is the remaining length? Is it 1.8 meter? 20 centimeter is 0.2 meter. So the remaining length is 1.8. Now tell me what is m dash equal to? 1.8 kg. Once you know the mass, tell me what should be the tension at this particular point. It is 2 plus 1.8 into 2. That is 3.8 into 2. 7.6 Newton. Okay, so this is how, if mass of the rope is not negligible, find out the tension by considering the remaining mass which is on the left side. Okay, so this is with an example I have given you, but sometimes they give you the question in terms of X and L. Generalized relation rather than the values. A block of mass capital M is attached to a rope of mass small m, length L. You have applied a force F. Find the tension at the point P, which is at a distance x from the free end. The same question but without values I am giving you. So first, how to get the acceleration? Total net force by sum of the masses. I want tension here. Tension at P is the remaining mass. Okay, I am taking this mass as m dash into A. Capital M plus m dash into, what is your acceleration? F by m plus n. Now replace this m dash, total mass by total length, linear density. Should be small mass by small length. Okay, what is this length? If this is x, this will be L minus x. So wherever you have m dash, I can write it as m by L into L minus x. Substitute capital M plus, instead of m dash, I will replace it as m by L into L minus x whole multiplied with f by small m plus capital N. So this will give you tension at a distance x from the free end of this string, okay, which is having a total mass m and total length is n. So this is how, if string's mass is not negligible also, you should know how to calculate the tension. Similarly, instead of giving horizontal arrangement, they may ask you for vertical arrangement if the mass of the string is not negligible. How to calculate the tension? Okay, so we'll give a heavy rope which is uniform, mass M, length L. Okay, here I'll attach a block of mass capital M. Okay, now also the question is same. Find the tension at this point P, which is at a distance x from the free end. Okay, so from the free end you have to calculate the tension in the string. So let this mass be M1. What is the remaining mass? M minus M1. Okay, because we want tension at this particular point. I'm taking the mass which is below P as M1, above P as M minus M1. So how to calculate the tension at this particular point? Is the tension at this point because of the weight which is hanging below it? So find out what will be the tension. Capital M plus M1 into G. Okay, it is freely suspended. It is not accelerating. Then find out what is the value of M dash. Total mass by total length should be M1 divided by X. Okay, because length of M1 is only X. Substitute it. Capital M plus M1 is M by L into X multiplied with what? G. And in a few books, this capital M may not be present. If there is no capital M, put capital M as how much? 0. Even in this case, if there is no horizontal block, that means capital M is absent, put capital M as equal to 0. Only string is given, then you can make it as capital M equal to 0. So these are all some simple questions where the arrangement of blocks and strings is either vertical or in horizontal position. Okay, now questions related to contact force. Okay, they may give you 2 or 3 blocks in contact with each other, and you have to calculate what is the contact force between one block and the other. Okay, look at the questions. 2 examples I'll give you. So first let us take the simplest case. Okay, 2 blocks, capital M and small m, are in contact on a smooth horizontal surface, and you have applied a force capital M. Then the question is, what is the contact force between capital M and small m? See, when you apply a force F on capital M, M in turn applies a force F. Okay, this is action-reaction pair. If M goes and pushes small m with a force F, reaction will also be same. And we are interested in finding what is this value of F. So let us first find out what is the acceleration of the system. Net force is capital F, total mass into acceleration. Okay, acceleration is net force by sum of the masses. See, we have got the acceleration F by M plus M. Okay, now look at this free body diagram for small m. For small m, only force acting on it is small m. And it is having an acceleration A. M into A. Applied minus opposing. There is no opposing force for small m. Okay, if I close this, on this only one force is acting. So what is the contact force? M into acceleration. That is F by capital M plus small m. Okay, I give it as capital M and small m. If values are given, you put the values. So this is the simplest case to find out the contact force between these two. Now instead of 2 blocks, they may give you 3. Okay, one more I will add. Let this be M dash. So make changes in it. What will be the acceleration? Now there will be 2 contact forces. Let the contact force between capital M and small m be F1. Between these 2 blocks, I will write the contact forces F2. Now we need to find 2 values, F1 as well as F2. Okay, tell me how to find F1 and F2. You are applying a force F. Acceleration is A. Sum of all the masses, M plus M dash, small m plus capital M dash. So acceleration is net force by sum of the masses. Okay. Now for this block, I will write the free body diagram. Only one force is acting, that is F2. It is having an acceleration A. M dash into A should be applied minus opposing. There is no opposing force. Applied is F2. So what is the value of F2 equal to? M dash into acceleration. F by capital M plus small m plus m dash. Come to the middle block. What are the forces acting on the central block? One force is F1, another force is F2. Okay, if I close these two on the central block, F1 and F2 are the only two forces acting. So make a free body diagram for this. This is F1, opposite is F2, acceleration is A, mass of the block is small m. So m into A, applied minus opposing, F1 minus F2. F2 we already know. Can you find the value of F1? What is F1 equal to? See, F2 is m dash into A. So F1 is equal to ma plus m dash A, or F1 comes out to be m plus m dash into acceleration. We already know the acceleration. It is F by m plus capital M plus m dash. This will give you the contact force F1. Now just observe one simple logic here. If you have three blocks and you are applying the force F, did we get the contact force F2 as this mass into acceleration? Whereas what about the contact force F1? It is m dash plus small m into acceleration. So when you are applying the force this side, contact force on the last block is the mass of the last block into acceleration. The before block is sum of these two masses into acceleration. Now using this logic, tell me what is the contact force if there were 7 identical blocks, some number. 7 identical blocks are placed on a smooth horizontal surface. I have applied a force F and numbering them like this. Find the contact force between 5th and 6th blocks, 3rd and 4th blocks. Okay, if I call this as F2, some number. Between these two contact forces F1. What is F1 by F2? Okay, you don't have to write the equations, free body diagram, etc. If you want to find F2, okay, we know that this system will have a common acceleration A. How to get the value of F2? If I need the value of F2, the remaining masses, okay, the remaining masses which are on this side, what are the masses? M plus M. Okay, F2 is equal to M plus M into A. If I want between these two blocks contact force, close it. What are these remaining masses? 1, 2, 3 and 4. F1 will be 4M into A. Now divide. What is the ratio of F1 by F2? 4MA by 2MA. 4 by 2. Is it in the ratio of 2:1? So if all the blocks are identical, if you want the contact force here, the remaining mass, whatever mass is left on that side, into acceleration. So tell me what will be the contact force between these two blocks? Close the first block. Add all the remaining masses. It is 6M into A. So this is a shortcut method to find out the contact force. But provided only one force should be acting, that is capital F. So this is all regarding contact forces, blocks and connected by the strings. But in the next class, I will tell you about pulley systems, okay, how to solve questions related to pulleys and blocks connected by strings. And also we will discuss about constraints.